Hearing and listening, I see as two distinctly different things. The background noise, you hear, but it doesn't really register a whole lot of meaning. If you're listening, you get meaning out of the sounds from wherever they're coming. You translate them into something that is relevant to what you're attempting to accomplish.
Well, I hear a car driving by right now. I hear a distant fan and some swallows. But am I really listening to those sounds? Listening, in a way, is being able to receive the sound inside so that there's a part of me that's able to take it in a less superficial way. Real listening is being connected not only to what I'm hearing, but also with an experience of myself hearing that sound.
You can't turn your ears off. You cannot turn them off. You're always hearing. And so we know that listening requires something else, something quite different from what you do ordinarily.
When I listen to poetry, it's like listening to anything. There's listening. You're listening with your whole body. And so I listen with my ears, but right now I'm listening to your body with my body. Even though you're not speaking, I can feel a connection between us and the wind in the background. So I listen to poetry, it's not so much what's the content of what someone wrote, but the quality of my listening that brings a connection between us, between two people. And isn't that what it's all about? Having a connection, first between us, like you and me right now, and then something that's trying to communicate itself through us. So each time someone speaks, it's a moment of creation. I want to be there for it. Otherwise, I missed my life.
So we listen to many things as we're making a pot. The first thing is to beat the clay onto the wheel to get it centered. And that has a boom, 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 boom sound. And then I turn the wheel on, and according to how fast it's going, it has a different sound. And I have to be very attentive to that. But then there's this more subtle listening, which is listening to the tips of my fingers as they're touching the clay. How are they lifting? And how is the body? Is the body free of tension? Am I listening to my body, or am I just trying really hard to do it? Or can I let the clay emerge? And in a way, that is what I consider deep listening. It's not so much with the ears as it's with the whole body, deep listening to the clay.
There's two sides to the creative process, as you know. One is that the process of producing. But there's only really one reason to write a poem down, and that's that you want to communicate with somebody. And so when we write in this circle, half of it is the process, but the other half, at least half, is the reading and the listening. And you can see the transformation, both in the reader, even in the poem. It's pretty miraculous because that person has written that down. It's an inner event, and they speak it. It's an outer event with people listening, and that poem becomes something.
We actually had the wood talking to us today. It was making its own noise as we were splitting the wood. it let go. The fibers began to break one by one in a crescendo of rended wood, and it was almost as if it was giving up its ghost. It was its death throes splitting from the forces we were putting on it.
I think really what I want to emphasize in my own practice is coming back to this remembering that what's happening right now is not listening, and like starting over to connect with this longing to reach toward another quality, and to activate something that's not usually there.
Oh, there's so many things that get in the way of deep listening. One is the endless chatter that goes on in my brain and taking me way back to yesterday, back to ahead to tomorrow, to my anxieties, my fears, to the deer fly that I'm afraid is going to bite me right now. Deep listening requires a sense of presence. And so how can I possibly be present is a huge question.
I recall William Siegel, whose farm I went to once. He was a quite senior person in the work who also was an extremely strong Buddhist. And he said, listen with your shoulders. And something changed in my listening process as I began to incorporate my body into that process of listening.
How can I listen with the whole body? And I touched a little bit on that. So there's listening with the ears. But for example, when I hear somebody playing wonderful music, it's an experience that's not only in my ears, but I can experience it in my chest, I can experience it in my belly, I can experience it all throughout me. And so that's the one thing I would like to add to this. And it is connected also with the deep listening that we wish to do with other people. And again, I need to have that contact with my body to be present as I'm with another person. And that makes all the difference in real deep listening.
So when we start in that circle, that writing circle, the first thing I establish, is listening.
Makes me nostalgic for the years I lived on coffee.
What we do is we wait. If somebody's writing after we've stopped, we wait until they've put their pen down. And then there's this effort to listen as a group. And it's a miracle. It really is a miracle. I don't know what else to call it. And it's this exchange, this exchange of somebody's truth, which mixes with yours. And here's another interesting thing. In a whole weekend, maybe you'll get one really, really good poem, one that you could consider worthy of being published. And in that poem, almost always you hear everybody's work. It often happens the last day or the last night, and you can hear everybody's poem in that poem, that great poem. And I think that's true about all art, right?
I do recall one time, and it was a shock, because I think that was when I started to realize that I really didn't understand how to listen. And it was more like a gift. It wasn't anything that any effort of mine was producing. But there was suddenly a feeling that what mattered most was to, while I was playing, somehow to make other people who were playing sound better. How could I play in such a way to make someone else sound better? I feel really is at the center of the search for listening is that it has to come back to silence, that it all emanates from silence.